Hey everybody, this is AlTonya and welcome to AlTonya's Library. This is my first podcast, so forgive me if it's not polished. By the time I'm doing podcast number 55, I'll be on point. Um, thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm not going to keep you long. I do have some things I want to share, and I'm hoping to make this a monthly kind of broadcast, just like a check-in, just to say, hey, uh, we're going through some things now, and we're not able to get out as much and connect with readers. And so we authors have got to be a little more creative when it comes to getting the word out about what we're doing. In addition to our social media posts and things of that nature. So thank you guys for chiming in or joining in with me today. Um, I have a few things to share. So you'll see me keep looking off to the side because I've got notes down here because I want to make sure that I tell you guys everything. Like I said, I'm not going to keep you long. Probably not even 30 minutes. Hopefully not even 20 minutes. I'm really trying to keep this short and brief. But if you've ever been at a conference or anything with me, I'm a little long-winded. But I'm trying to work on that. So bear with me. So the first thing, one of the things that I hope to do often with this podcast is I like to share questions. I get so many emails from my readers, and it's just amazing. I often tell people, I don't get a lot of reviews, but I get my readers really do email me a lot and tell me how much they love the books, ask me questions and things of that nature. I adore that. From time to time, I get some really amazing questions too. I mean, just the insights. One of the questions recently was, is your work too ambitious? And I thought about that. It made me really think for a minute when I thought about what that word. Wow, I never stopped to consider it. I have an idea in my head and I want to move full steam with it. But when I was looking at that question and thinking about the word ambitious, I actually went and got a nice definition to share with you because I don't know if it's a word we just kind of assume we know what it means, but until we really start to think about it, you know, so I'm just going to read here. A plan or piece of work intended to satisfy high aspirations and therefore difficult to achieve. So, I'm like, wow, do I have anything like this? And the first thing that came to mind was my recent Tisano Elders book. So for those of you who've read it or seen it or know of it or whatever, it's pretty lengthy. That book printed is about 700 pages. So it was a very ambitious project for me. Too ambitious? I would say yes at the beginning when the story was still in my head, not on paper, nothing written down of substance. It was ambitious. I thought about all the things that I would need to include in this story in order for it to pass muster with me. It's one thing to put it out there and readers say, yeah, this is great, but do I think it's great? And so what I wanted to bring to that story at the beginning, yeah, it was very, very ambitious because I'm thinking, when am I going to have time to write something like this? This is a lot of work, and I work full time. I work full time. At the time I was getting this story completed or working on this story, my son, he's about to graduate high school, get in high school, trying to get things in order for him. And if you're a parent at all, whether your child is in high school or not, it's just round the clock work. So with all of that, and then things you have on your own that you're trying to deal with, it was a lot, and I didn't know what I was going to be able to do, but I knew I needed to get that story out of my mind. And once I started putting it on paper, things began to sing. So I used this question as a segue into a small pep talk for you aspiring, or not even aspiring, because if you're writing, you're a writer. If you already got something down on paper, I consider you a writer. So for you writers out there who are still trying to finish that story, finish that first book, don't let the fact that it's an ambitious project sway you or stop you. Keep going, because until you get it out of your head, yeah, it is going to feel like it's too ambitious. It is going to feel like something that you probably can't finish. but you got to keep trying. Every day that you put more words on that paper, that ambitious level is coming down. It's coming down, and soon you're going to be right where you want to be. Okay, so take it from somebody who's written a 700-page book that I really adore, that was everything that I wanted it to be, and actually has left the door open for another story down the road of that caliber. Take it from me, it can be done. Okay, in spite of all the things you have to do, it can be done. Okay. So moving on, one of the other things that I wanted to do in this podcast, I promised, was I wanted to talk about the projects that I have out, and I am going to talk about those. As you know, Allie Fleming, who is one of my pen names for interracial romantic suspense. She has a new story coming out next month, December 11th. The last book in the Sleeping Giant series will be published. That's Favored. That is the title. And again, I say this often, but the Sleeping Giant series is a standalone series, which means that you can read the books in any order, but I really do encourage you to read them in order so that you'll have a richer experience. As a avid reader myself, I find that when I just go ahead and start from book one, it just makes it a lot more fun. A lot of little inside jokes and things, or just references to people sometimes that don't necessarily need to be explained. You don't need them explained anyway because you already know. But in a later book, if someone is mentioned, they might not be important enough to the book to really give a full outlay of who they are. They just might need to be in that person's dialogue for whatever reason. But if you've read the series, it kind of makes it just a little more, oh yeah, I know who that is, and I know what that happened there. So yeah, read the series. uh, so what I would like to do is share a preview read. I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to do that at the end of the podcast because a lot of my readers don't like previews. You know who you are. But this way that you can enjoy the rest of the podcast. And then at the end, if you're not wanting to read a preview, you can just skip that part. But because a lot of people just want the book and the preview just angers them and they're ready for the book now. So it is available for pre-order. So I would encourage you to go ahead and pre-order it. That way, when you wake up on that Friday morning, it's already there for you to enjoy. But I will share a preview read at the end of the podcast. So thank you so much for your support of this series. It came out of nowhere. I just wanted to see if I could do it. I have really never read a lot of interracial romances, but I did have the thought that this would be the kind of series that it would be. So I have enjoyed it so much. I mean, it has been a fast moving series. I've really just grabbed these characters, just gripped me and wouldn't let go until I got the story out. They were like, you're gonna finish us quick. So I have done that. I do have the door open for more books. These folks right here, their part in it is gonna kind of come to an end, but you will still see them. But I do have some ideas for some other new characters to come in. You will probably get some glimpses of them in this last book. So, but not a lot, just very subtle. So moving on from there. So when I say and now, you'll know that I'm getting ready to do the preview read, but not yet. So next, I did promise that I would talk about things that I'm reading and watching, and I can't let this moment go by without talking about one book that I read a few months ago that I did review on Goodreads. So if you're not on Goodreads, or if you know of Goodreads, goodreads.com, you can put it in and pull up my page and you'll see all my reviews. I review a lot. Homegoing by Ya Giassi. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but it is a phenomenal story. It chronicles a family's plight through slavery. It talks a lot about how families were split. You get to see a lot of this. It's a generational story. It's very sweeping, a sweeping epic. If you don't like books with a lot of characters, which I don't understand how people say that, but anyway, if you don't like books with a lot of characters, this may not be the one for you, because there are tons of characters in it. But it's just an epic story of the toll, the struggle, the horror of slavery and what it has done to this family over the course of many generations. But beyond that, it also shows the the involvement of Africans in enslaving their own brethren. And, we hear about that a lot, but seeing it play out in the midst of this story, the pages, and how it just affected down the road these generations of people, it's I've never read anything like it. So I encourage you, read some reviews, or if you don't like reviews, I understand that because I'm not a big review person myself. I do enjoy telling people what I think about stories if I love them that much. But take those in, or just read an overview of the story and enjoy it, because I believe you will. I listen to it. I love to listen to it because listening to stories sometimes, especially ones that introduce um, characters from different countries, and you get the correct pronunciation of names and things of that nature, and then the story just comes alive for you if the narrator is really good. And this was a very good narrator, brilliant narrator. So Homegoing. Also, Shadows in Death, the latest J.D. Robb book in the In Death series. Stunning work. I've been reading this series since 2006. It started, I believe, back in the 90s, so there were several books that had already been done by the time I came on board with reading it. Shadows in Death, and the one I think Golden in Death was the one that came out just prior to it. Phenomenal. It just those two stories kind of took me back to when I was a new reader to the series. Just had that same flavor. So I encourage you, if you haven't read any of the books in the series, this is another standalone series that will allow you to you can just jump into it from anywhere and not be lost. So I would encourage you to read it. I thought it was amazing. Hardcore crime drama. So if you don't like a lot of details in descriptive elements in crime, you might want to skip it. It can be a little much. It can be a little much, but it's worth it. It's worth it. As is Troubled Blood, which is the latest book by J.K. Rowling, who writes as Robert Galbraith. Again, her Cormoran strike character. I just adore him. Gruff, gritty, private detective in Britain. I listen to this again and again. I have a long commute every morning, so listening to this massive story, I think this book was probably about 1,000 pages, I think, written, printed. But listening to it every morning just made my commute just breeze by. So, again, gritty crime drama. So if you have a problem with a lot of detail, this one might be a bit much, but it is so worth the read. So worth the read. The last one I want to talk about kind of segues into what I'm watching, Lovecraft Country. Wow. Now, I'm telling you, talking about surprised, I mean, I didn't even know this was based off of a book. It's a show on HBO. So if you're not watching it or haven't watched it, get to it. It's worth it. It's executive produced by Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele is part of this project, and it's worth your time. I believe there are 10 episodes. Season 1 just wrapped. I'm pretty sure they're going to have a season 2. I am reading the book now, so I'm not sure how much of season 1 came from book 1, or how much, if season 1 covered everything that's in the book. There is only one book that I know of. So I'm really excited. I just started it. So again, I'm looking forward to my commute being spiced up by this audiobook read. But just great, strong African American characters in roles that, you know, you wouldn't even, we very rarely get to see, and in storylines that we very rarely get to see for African American characters. So just completely original, and I'm loving it. Already got several of my coworkers on it, so it's just, trust me, you'll like it. Again, go out, find trailers, look at the trailers, watch the first couple of episodes. If you don't feel it after the first 2 episodes, then forget it. But give it 2 episodes and watch the trailer and see. Another one on HBO was Raised by Wolves. This one, Ridley Scott, who is the person behind all the Alien movies, Sigourney Weaver Alien series. I have enjoyed it. You won't find a lot of flash and dazzle, lots of huge the special effects are really subtle in this series. There's again 10 of them and 10 episodes, and they just wrapped as well. But it's hard to describe, but it takes place it's like an apocalyptic. It's after everything has gone to pot here, and we've moved on to this other planet to try to settle and the problems and the issues that happen as a result of this, and how is humanity going to survive, and who have they chosen to carry humanity forth. That's kind of like at the crux of this series. So give it a shot. Finally, on Netflix, Van Helsing is, yeah, it's a vampire show, but trust me, it is unlike any vampire show I have ever watched. It's the show of a vampire slayer, but forget everything you think you know about what slayers do. Forget everything you think you know about what vampires do. It is, I've the first couple of episodes, I was kind of just sitting with like this expression on my face. So give it a shot. Look at the trailer. Lots of gore. I mean, it is a gory show. Sometimes I kind of had to look away because I was like, okay, enough. But it's worth it. The storyline is brilliant. So that's it for now. I watch a lot of shows. I told you I watch too much TV. But it's, we got to find ways to just keep ourselves uplifted and excited and engaged. And that helps a lot. So if you're a TV person, give it a try. If you're a book person, give those titles a try and enjoy. So, and now I'm about to read a excerpt from Favored, the latest in the Sleeping Giants saga, book 4, releasing December 11th. He'd kill you for this view. You know that, right? Oh, I know. Laughter carried softly on the early afternoon breeze. I know he's a real property connoisseur. Property connoisseur, huh? You make the term greedy sound so elegant. Prin's laughter rang out again, and that time she looked up from the small chair she sanded to fix her guest with a playfully chastising look. Now, she said, nothing wrong with being a land baron. If you say so, land baron. Slate tacked on the phrase, his tone one of genuine amusement. I'm surprised he hasn't seen it yet. Who? Pope? Prin returned to her sanding. No, none of your friends have. You're the first. Slate looked back over the rooftop view and let satisfaction take shape across his face. It was about time, he thought, considering he'd been the very last of his friends to be introduced to the woman he'd done a shameful amount of fantasizing over since he'd first seen her nearly a year ago. Princess Holland had occupied practically his every waking thought, and a great deal of his sleeping ones as well. To himself, and maybe his closest friends, he'd admit to wanting to keep her with him in bed uninterrupted for at least a week. Only to himself, however, would he admit such a fantasy had slim chance of happening. Prin Holland only saw him as a friend. It's why I wanted everyone to come here tonight. Sorry? Slate switched off his annoying thoughts and tuned into Prin's words. I'm just happy everyone can be here tonight is all, she went on. There's so much to celebrate. She settled back against the brick wall of her studio and sighed. We've had a party at everyone's house except mine, I think. Not true. Slate turned his back on the view and rested along the ledge. Don't think I've ever seen T's place. Ha! You won't. Prin went back to work on the chair. The girl hates entertaining. I don't know how she'll handle a big splashy wedding when the time comes. Slate's rich laughter hit the air. She and Merc are a perfect pair. Yeah. Prin lost interest in her work again. Yeah, they are. Slate watched her nod and thought she may have been giving herself a mental congrats for a job well done. Should I ask what we're really celebrating here tonight, Princess? Prin set aside her sander and pushed to her feet to lean against the studio wall. How do you do that? She asked him. Call me Princess and not make me want to hit you. Ah, it's a gift. Long, slow strides brought Slate closer until he joined her at the wall. He slid down some in order to bring his 6 feet 8 inches into a less towering perspective. When we first met, you kept asking me to shorten it. And you kept forgetting to. Prin rested her shoulder on the wall and observed him with a knowing look. Slate copied Prin's one shoulder lean against the dark brick. I said you needed to find a way to make me remember. She rolled her eyes. I'm working on it. Not hard enough, Princess. Doubt infused the look he gave her then. Makes me think you don't mind it much. Prin studied him a touch more intently, wondering how anyone's eyes could be so purple. She never commented or complimented on their brilliance, suspecting she might embarrass him. She knew how it felt to have others rave over things as insignificant as physical traits. I guess it's just that Texas drawl of yours, she joined in when he laughed, motivated much by its sound, as she was by her own amusement. Thanks so much for coming over early, she said, once their laughter tapered somewhat. He gave a casual shrug. You asked me. But coming all this way, Prin argued, I don't even know what to call my little get-together, and I know you must be busy. Honey, the only thing I'm busy doing is relaxing. Prin shook her head frantically. Please don't make me laugh when I'm trying to thank you. You're welcome. I was happy to come, especially for this. Truthfully speaking, he would have hightailed it there from his home in Greece to help her hang a picture if she'd asked him to. No talents you want to explore? Prin asked. You've certainly got all the resources you'd ever need. Slate responded with a playful wince. I'm afraid my talents aren't like yours, Miss Holland. Not really looking for jobs that require my particular skill set these days, thank God. Thank God indeed, he thought. A lifetime spent in the service of monsters had honed his talents and put them to superb use. The Gan had raised them, trained them in the vocation of murder. It was Mercury who had seen a way out, an escape from an existence they had never been given a chance of accepting. Their way had been paved by the brutal hotel room slayings of the Ten, the Gan's governing board. That bold move had required bold retaliation. The Las Vegas killings were believed to have been carried out by a team of assassins posing as hookers. It was later discovered that the assassins were indeed hookers on the job for the Gan's personal pimp, Enrique Roya. The Gan sent its most elite fighters to wipe Roya from the map. The organization had never counted on betrayal by one of its own. A Gan soldier was little more than an indentured servant, slave perhaps, being a more accurate descriptor. In a move that to this day earned him the respect and reverence of a king, Mercury joined forces with Roya. They were accompanied by a number of soldiers who believed Mercury's plan had a chance of winning their freedom. The plan was a success, the mission beautifully executed. Roya showed his gratitude to Mercury with a financial reward worth millions. The Gan soldiers took freedom as their reward. For Mercury and his closest friends, however, a multi-million-dollar payoff was just the beginning. Thanks to sound investments, wise real estate choices, and the formation of Mercury Fleet's shipping, they were now a powerhouse to be reckoned with. Mercury and their friend Pope Apostolou were best with money. That suited Slate and Rutger Eliades to a T. Slate and Rutger were fine letting their two business-minded friends handle their investments while they immersed themselves in travel and women. Lately, travel was the only thing Slate had been interested in losing himself in. Women had become a source of infrequent gratification. He preferred to have them vanish once he was sated. That was before Princess Holland had breezed by him one day in a crowded restaurant. The smell of her perfume had captured his attention, and he had only looked up from his menu to see if she was as pretty as her scent. Even now, it clung to her clothes. He went to bed most nights wondering if it covered her everywhere. Down, fool, he warned himself. The moment his eyes had locked on her back then, he'd been lost ever since. About 7 months would pass after that initial sighting before they actually met and became friends. So I guess you're content leading the life of a playboy, huh? Slate made a phony show of being offended. I prefer the term travel aficionado. Well, well, Prin laughed. Look who's being elegant now. Hey, I'm learning from the best. Slate's words were lively enough, but watching Prin as she laughed, he knew his face must have carried the look of some lust-driven idiot. How could it not? Prin Holland was unquestionably a goddess. She walked a provocative line between curvy and statuesque. She was a knockout even in a dingy smock and coveralls, with her wheat blonde locks piled haphazardly atop her head. Wisps of it framed her unforgettable brown face, and she was exquisite. Slate sensed that he was staring intently at her, as he often did when she was anywhere in the vicinity. He'd done all he could to make that happen over the last 2 months. It had been that long since the fireworks at Rutger's mountain home. The drama had been wrapped up tidily enough, and blessedly, Prin hadn't been involved. Still, Slate was antsy over the idea of her being on her own too much. Not that he believed she couldn't take care of herself, only something had been gnawing at him since certain vengeful members of the gang, namely Rutger's half-brother, Jake Grodens, had come to pay an unexpected visit. Jake was now safely tucked away in a cell and awaiting trial. Mercury had seen to it long ago that his fiancée, Etienne Shaw, and her friends had round-the-clock security. Still, Slate felt better seeing for himself that Prin was safe. That, and he enjoyed agitating her personal bodyguard and GAN alum, Andrew Shepard. Well, travel aficionados have schedules to keep too, Prin was saying. She patted a hand to the long-sleeved crew shirt that hung out over his black cargo pants. I'm just glad you could come by early is all. And you still haven't told me why. Slate's curiosity flared alongside his concern when Prin rested back flush against the wall. It's kind of stupid, she sighed. Slate grinned. Okay. And probably not at all true, she added. He laughed then. Okay, now you gotta tell me. Prin worried the edge of her work smock with her coveralls. I guess I was just feeling kind of lonely here. Andy finally took my advice and treated himself to a vacation. And you didn't want to look completely pitiful when the other happy couples arrived. He watched her laugh and adored the way she covered her mouth. It was an infrequent occurrence, but one he greatly enjoyed. Coming down off her high, Prin nodded. I thought we could look completely pitiful together. I was hoping you wouldn't mind. She had no idea how little he minded. And what part of that isn't true? He asked her. The hoping I wouldn't mind part? He watched her wince mildly and smiled in reaction to its effect on her face. I told you could bring somebody. Figured you would. Slate used his elbow to nudge her arm and waited for her to look up at him. I'm happy to be completely pitiful with you. Prin stood on the toes of her sneakers and tugged Slate's shirt until he bent low enough for her to press a sweet and, in Slate's opinion, sickeningly platonic kiss to his jaw. It was a first between them, and it took everything not to haul her up next to him and take more. I'm going to go get dressed. She gave his shirt another tug. The caterers will be here soon with the food, but there's plenty in the kitchen if you're hungry. Just help yourself to anything you want, okay? She patted his chest again, then sprinted from the roof soon after. If you're hungry. He was, and definitely not for anything in her kitchen unless he was to find her there on the counter. He was an expert at spotting the lengths some women thought they had to go to get a man's attention. The coy and vampy elements were bona fide attention getters, but did little in the way of garnering real affection, let alone respect. His painful infatuation with Prin Holland might even have eased off a little if she'd exuded the barest hint of those elements. She didn't. The woman truly had no idea what she was doing or saying to him. She was just sweet, achingly lovely in a way that had nothing to do with outer beauty. She wasn't lust-driven, and neither, he realized in that moment, was he. He was, quite simply, in love with her. Sleeping Giants releases December 11th. Start your rereads, folks. It's gonna be sensational, if I do say so myself. But for now, thanks for joining me at AlTonya's Library. Till next time, bye.